Happy New Year, Force of Will players! My name's Charlie DeMel, and today what I'm going to bring you is I'm going to do a tier list of all the rulers slash deck types that we're going to probably be seeing in a tournament for the Game of Gods set. So this is post-rotation. We have all of Saga Cluster, and then we have the first set of Duel Cluster with this tier set. I'm going to be using Tier List Maker. The template that I found has all the rulers, but it has all of the rulers. So it might look a little funky because I'm just going to be doing the rulers that are legal in New Frontiers. We'll be talking about them, and then we'll see where it goes. So I'm just going to pull it up on my screen. So this is Tier List Maker. If I want to talk about another card, I have a database, Force of Wind, pulled up. If I need to use that. As you can see, like I said, it has all of the rulers on this sheet. However, they are like organized by set, I believe. At least down here they are. So all the New Frontiers rulers are all down here. So I'm just going to be talking about those, okay? Kind of how this is going to be layered, since this was a pre-made template that I found. The main thing is, if I put something in B tier or above, I think it has the potential to win a GP, okay? So things that are still in B tier, I could see winning a GP. I don't think they would. They'd be like on the bottom, like who's ever piloting it has to be crazy good and get absurdly lucky throughout all their matches and everything like that. So it's not likely to win a GP, but I could still see it winning a GP. Anything C tier or below, I don't think could possibly win a Grand Prix. However, I think like if it's like C tier, maybe even some D tier, depending on how well you pilot it, what your matchups are throughout the tournament, so on and so forth, you could still potentially top 8. When we get down to F tier, there shouldn't even be an E tier, honestly. We'll just delete that. In F tier, it can't top 8, can't anything like that, okay? So we're going to get into it right away, and I'm just going to go in order of what they have on the list here. So a few of these, I'm not going to really be too sure about, especially some of the earlier rulers. A lot of it is going off of used decks like in the past and stuff like that, and stuff we've seen before. So some of these are going to be a little like I don't know-ish tier, which I guess I could add one of those, but we'll just put I don't know. Can I add a row? Add a row below. There we go. Add a row below. Literally don't know. All right, we'll go into literally don't know. All right, Lilius. So starting off with Lilius, I'd put her in the F, maybe D. It's like D or F tier for Lilius. Part of it is it's just like red deck wins kind of thing with strength counters, etc., etc. You can never say that you can't ever win like a game in Force of Will, regardless of how bad your deck is. That's just like card games in general. You always have a chance to win. But like no top player is going to be playing Lilius at any kind of event. I don't even really think she saw play when she was first released, when the rotation happened when Saga Cluster started. So I'd probably put her in F tier. She's borderline literally don't know tier, because I never really saw her used a lot. No one really went after the like second coming of strength counters. But I would put her down probably in F tier. She might be D tier. I could be convinced otherwise. A lot of these rulers down here are probably going to be in there, by the way. Mikage, same thing. I'm going to put him in F tier. It's just not as good of a control ruler as some of the other control rulers that we have. And you'll unfortunately be seeing that a lot, again, with some of the earlier Saga Cluster rulers, is they just got power crept out of the game. With the Magic Stone War past that, so Saga Cluster set 2 and then everything after that, Saga Cluster set 2 came out with Tag, which was good, but it used a lot of cards from the previous cluster, which I actually don't remember what this previous cluster was called. Alice Origins? Alice Origins. It was called Alice Origins. But so they used a lot of cards from Alice Origins, and some of the Regalia rulers were still decent when set MSW Magic Stone War was released. However, with set 3, Advent, Attack of the Demon World, something like that. ADW, I know it's set code. With that set, a lot of the cards within the main deck got power crept a lot. Because also Rebirth of Legend came out at the same time. So you had... Or Assault on the Demonic World, that's what it is. So Assault on the Demonic World and Rebirth of Legend came out simultaneously. And they gave so much power to these Saga Cluster rulers. And they kind of like kicked the Alice Origin rulers out. But it also made that these earlier rulers got like crept out of the format pretty much. So Mikage, unfortunately, same kind of thing. Oborozuki, same kind of thing. +1/+1 counters never really flourished. That deck never really took off. It has some unique things, but it's not doing like a whole lot. Ragnarok. So Ragnarok was one of the rulers that actually saw some representation throughout Saga Cluster formats, as well as kind of when he was right when he was released, but he was also held up a lot by the Alice Origins cards. So one of the main ones being Magna's Guardian Beast. So there was a long like quasi combo line that you could do with Ragnarok on your first turn because you got free mana that allowed you to swarm the board super quick, pretty much, right? So but we lost Magna's Guardian Beast, so we lost that ability to swarm the board out. So unfortunately, Ragnarok lost a lot of his powerful tools. However, just like based on what his effects are and how singleton rulers have been in the past, he has powerful enough effects that I don't expect them to be equivalent to the rulers that are down here in the bottom tier. And since he's had success in the past, I'd put him up to D. The other thing with Ragnarok is he practically has perfect mana, because he has 4 of his stone, which Ragnarok stone allows you to tap for 5 colors, and then he has... And your ruler doesn't have to tap to call a stone, and then you can play Magic Stone of the Six Ages, which is another 5-color stone. Your ruler doesn't have to tap, so on and so forth, right? So Ragnarok has... I don't think he has a lot of potential. He didn't gain a whole lot, and he lost a whole lot. So unfortunately for Ragnarok, he's going to be in D tier. If someone randomly top 8'd with him at an event, I wouldn't be surprised, but it's not something that I would like expect, basically. Celesta, same kind of thing as these rulers. However, she just has this unique thing of being like the J ruler beats deck, outside of the newer, better ones. She was more of a control value J ruler beats thing. Like your J ruler beat down was your win con after you controlled out the board, where the more recent J ruler beats just kind of kill your opponent in a turn with your J ruler. So it was a little bit different, but she got some cards in Rebirth of Legend that kind of helped her out. Her mechanic was just a little too slow comparatively to what the current decks are doing. But she's still a pet deck of some people. Everyone loves Kiki, right? Her fancy little ferret, I think. So she gets to go into D tier. Again, same kind of thing as Ragnarok. She didn't lose a whole lot outside of mana consistency. But with the, I guess, what's the best way to put it? The, like, rotation and the loss of dual stones, she lost a decent amount of consistency. She's primarily blue, but a lot of these rulers that had dual stones before and were doing stuff with dual stones, since they lost them, they're not as consistent anymore, right? So she gets to go into D tier. Welser. I don't know if I want to put him in C or B tier. I think I want to put him in C tier. So Welser, I'm actually going to go to the database for this one. He got something interesting. Or he got a lot of things that are interesting. So he got the Nyarlathotep cards. So Nyarlathotep in the new set Game of Gods, she has the mechanic where she gets a bunch of stones into play. That's just what she does. Welser has the condition that he can only judgment when you have 10 stones in play. So the Nyarlathotep cards allows Welser to judgment even earlier than he could before. Like, for example, people were using Yggdrasil Top Taurus Destination, the edition, in order to kind of count towards magic stones for the judgment effect. And so he could judgment a little bit faster, and then you were using Last Secret Sword over and over again to burn out. We lost Last Secret Sword, however, with Cthulhu's Intimidation, because Cthulhu's Intimidation costs 1 less for each stone that's entered play this turn, when you judgment your Welser, you shuffle back everything and draw 5. If you draw Cthulhu's Intimidation and you've called 3 stones that turn, either through your natural, like, call a stone, and then the Nyarlathotep cards that give you stones, Cthulhu's Intimidation costs 0, right? And Cthulhu's Intimidation, when it costs, when you have 3 stones that have entered play, it draws you a card. So if you have a 0 mana Cthulhu's Intimidation, since Welser will always add the chance back to your hand that you play, it'll always cost 0 and you'll always draw a card. So you can draw your whole deck with Welser, with Cthulhu's Intimidation, and then you can, after you've drawn your whole deck, you can start third booning your Cthulhu's Intimidation, so you just need the single green mana, and then when you third boon your Cthulhu's Intimidations, or the deck can play Lycian, so you don't even need the mana, third boon at Seal 10, which you'll need to be at Seal 10 in order to judgment your Welser anyway, will recover all your stones. And then third boon will keep doing that over and over again. You add infinite mana, and you can find a way to kill your opponent from there, I'm sure. You draw your whole deck, you gain infinite mana. I'm sure there's some way for you to kill your opponent. Play a Bahamut. Play another card that gives them swiftness. I don't know. There are plenty of ways that you can kill your opponent with infinite card draw, infinite mana. So that's why Welser goes up there. He's still a control deck-ish. Like he's a control combo deck, because you want to draw the cards to judgment him early in order to do this, like, pop-off. However, if you don't draw them, or your opponent's just like an aggro deck and goes faster, and you don't have the tools to deal with the aggro because you're too focused on the combo, then you'll die. So, and we lost Intimidation, so we lost the fog effect that the deck used to play, and that the Wanderer version of the deck plays. So he's kind of down there for those reasons. Stone-wise, mana-base-wise, he gets to play 4 Bradstone, which at Seal 3, which you activate Seal earlier, it'd basically be turn 2 in a Welser deck. You get 5 mana. He plays Magic Stone of the Six Sages, which is 5 mana, and then he plays his own stone, which is a single green, but when it untaps, which his effect untaps stones, you get it becomes 5 color. So he's pretty much a 5 color deck. He doesn't suffer as much from consistency issues as some of the other decks do. However, it's still, his combo-ness is sort of fragile in what he's doing, and he has to kind of focus more on red for the combo part. Again, 5 color, but it can be awkward sometimes. So that's why he's at C. I don't expect it to top 8. Or I would never see it winning a GP, but if it topped 8 at a GP, I wouldn't be super surprised. So for the tag rulers, I'm going to kind of talk about them in the concept of what their best decks were. So Almerius, her best decks were there's the Wanderer version, which is Mooj Almerius, and some people played it in New Frontiers. The original version when tag first came out, which was Almerius Gruz Ballesta, and then Feeth Almerius. And Feeth Almerius was starting to see play as like a sideboard option against Violet. However, part of the best part about Almerius was the fact that you could play Mikage Rhea, and then Mikage Rhea could dump not only Sigurd, but also Final Stance. And so when you dumped Final Stance, you could resurrect it with Almerius, give yourself an extra turn, and giving yourself an extra turn pretty much guaranteed you won. I don't know if you can hear the siren in the background, but I do apologize for that. So those were the main decks with Almerius. It was the fact that you had that extra life, but you also had the ability to resurrect Final Stance, primarily. The best light card in the game now for New Frontiers, I'm pretty sure, is Eldorado Pearlshine. And I don't foresee you wanting to play Almerius just to resurrect Eldorado. Having the extra 3,000 life might be relevant for like Violet or other aggro matchups or things like that in order to try and stay alive for like as a sideboard option for Almerius, but your resurrection target either changed or just really doesn't exist anymore. So the Almarius variants, I'm going to give a B. I don't expect you to see Muj Almarius. The only real thing outside of, like, if they sideboard out of Feethsing, and then same kind of thing with, like, Feeth Almarius, unless they sideboard out of Muj Dart. Gruz Ballesta Almarius practically doesn't exist. Gruz Ballesta, like, I think super hard fell off, especially with the release of, like, Melfi and Rebirth of Legend and things like that. Quite a few people stopped playing Gruz Ballesta and just focused on Feethsing Muj Dart as the best kind of version of that deck. However, again, I wouldn't be surprised if it, like... Yeah, I wouldn't put Almarius as, like, the main focal point of those decks. However, she's a nice sideboard option to just be like, hey, I'm going to start the game with 3,000 more life, right? Feethsing. So Feethsing is going to go into S tier. So Feethsing, the primary Feethsing decks are Feethsing Muj Dart, Feethsing Almarius, and Feethsing Gruz Ballesta. Those were the main ones. There was like a Feethsing Molest deck, but we're not going to talk about that. So Feethsing Muj Dart has been like the de facto, practically like one of the best decks in New Frontiers for the past couple sets. It has Melfi, Lycion, right, the Magic Academy, to just play 2-mana counterspells and stuff like that for free, or just 2-mana cards for free. Every time a chant comes out that is 2 mana, Feeth Muj gets even better if that card is decent. And we've seen different variants of it with, like, the first boon with Faria in order to gain more value out of the deck because it suffered from generating value. It was very value neutral. However, the deck did lose the Magna's Guardian Beast line with Prisia, so it no longer has access to go, like, Magna's Guardian Beast into double Floodgate, or Magna's Guardian Beast into double Neverend, things like that, right? It just doesn't have that anymore. However, it does have other options that it didn't have previously. Sorry, I had a hair in my mouth. That it didn't have previously. So, I mean, you could play like a Brunhild if there are light cards that you're trying to resurrect. I guess you could play like an Eldorado version of the deck. So like Brunhild's an option but that would force you into villains. So if you want to go into Tails, you have access to Feethsing now. So Feethsing is just a hard stifle and you're already playing Lycions. You can play Gale of the Moon in the deck, which is a green-green counterspell and produces a moon. You're not doing much with the moon, but if you're playing Feethsing, then the moons will count towards her addition count. So it got some more tech options, and the deck's still just hyper-consistent, super good, and then it plays at 1-for-1 super well. The only issue I could see with it is if order decks become more and more prevalent, it'll start to fall off more. However, with order, we've found that you can only order when the ruler is recovered, which means in order for you to order a card, you're almost always playing down a stone at the time of the order, which they can't be countered, but it's still not great, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to quantify, like, the mana situation with that, but with that being the case, it made order decks a lot less powerful, that you can't order while your ruler is rested. So with that, Feeth Muj got kind of a bump up, because Kaguya was going to be the best control deck. However, Kaguya has to be untapped, which means it can lead to some funky scenarios. Whereas this deck, Feeth Muj, is just hyper consistent. Didn't really lose much. It lost some stuff, but it didn't lose much. And then it just gained a couple more like utility tools. So still super powerful deck. Feeth Almarius, again, it's just you add the Almarius for the extra 3,000 life. And then Feethsing Gruz Ballesta. I don't foresee Gruz Ballesta seeing play, like, just at all. Some people like the Gruz Ballesta play lines, but without Sigurd, it gets it feels a lot worse. Because you don't have Mikage Rhea into Sigurd, into Rip Out, the Magic Stone Research Institute, I think is the name. You would just have to, like, hard draw Institute, and it just kind of feels like a mess. So that's why I would put Feethsing is S tier, but the Gruz Ballesta variant is kind of gone. Moving on, Gruz Ballesta. The variant's kind of gone. I don't foresee it seeing play, but it's attached to tag and it's attached to other good rulers, so it has the potential to top 8 if someone's very invested in playing like a Gruz Ballesta Feethsing list, or I guess Gruz Almarius or something like that. Okay. Molest. Molest, I'm going to put in C tier. Same kind of thing. It's attached to Tag, and Tag is just super powerful. The two Molest decks that I ever remember seeing was Molest Feethsing and then Molest Mujdart. Molest Mujdart can just do an absolute absurd amount of damage, and it has so many cards that it just can kind of get there sometimes. So it's just a typical burn deck. That's why, so I would kind of put it at C tier. If people like traditional burn, Molest Muj is the way to go. Molest Feethsing was kind of like a weird variant of like a burn deck, but it still was kind of the same thing. If you're playing Molest, you're pretty much playing like a burn deck. But I think the Feeth version had like a combo to do more damage or something like that. I only heard about it, I never actually saw it, but so that's why Molest is going to be in the C tier. Mujdart is also gonna be up in like the S tier. Like again, it pairs with Feethsing so well. The only other real decks you would see with it are again Molest or like Almerius as a sideboard option. Like most people aren't going to be playing Muj Almerius as their main tag combo. It's gonna be these two paired together, right? Wolfgang 1.0. I'm gonna put him in C tier. The reason for him in C tier, purely the only reason for him in C tier, is he still just has that turn 1 kill you, and he can do it. I forget if he needs Energize or not. I'm too lazy to look it up. I think he might, but he just has a random, if you don't have any interaction with me, I win the game. So I mean that's kind of interesting, but I'm pretty sure that's like the top end of the deck. I don't think it really gets much more like complex than that. So again, depending on like your matchup stuff and all that, I could see a Wolfgang 1.0 top 8ing a GP. I wouldn't be like surprised. Could I see it winning a GP? Absolutely not. But sneaking into like a top 8 or anything like that, I could definitely see that as like a possibility. Zero. She gets to go into F tier. She never saw play with like any of these rulers. Her condition for judgmenting and just what she does isn't that good comparatively to the rest of the tag rulers, and she doesn't really have a whole lot of value outside of the tag rule, like, because so some of the tag rulers give you value within the main deck based on what they're doing. She doesn't do that like at all. So, or at least the cards that she has that might do that aren't great. So that's why she gets to go into F tier. We're just gonna, there we go. We're not even going to talk about him. Olivia. So Olivia I'm going to put into C tier. The reason for that is Olivia was a primarily control deck, but there were a couple people that brought her to some of the in-person GPs we had in the 2021 season and almost top 8'd with her, I believe. Like they were pretty close. And so, and that, in that vein, I have to give her credit that she could have snuck in there. At her core, she's just really like a blue control bounce style deck from what I've seen of her play. She's not as potent or explosive as like the top control decks that we have, but she still has some uniqueness to her, as well as like a fun play style through the randomization effects, right? And being able to choose which effect you want, etc., etc. So that's why she gets to go into C tier. Faria also gets to go into C tier. The reason for Faria in C tier is, or Excalibur Genesis, is that the Heroes deck can just win. It can just win the game randomly. Like, if your hand is super good, it can win on turn 1. With Energize. You can win on turn 1. You have to get lucky, right? Like you have to draw the right, I think you need 4 specific cards, and then you also have to hit a Magic Stone of the 6 Ages, but you can win on turn 1. Otherwise, like typically it can start popping off at turn 2. A lot of it is reliant on your early turns hitting Magic Stone of the 6 Ages for the recovery effect, or having hit like a Ragnarok Stone early. When I was playing this deck, I played 1 Ragnarok Stone just in case I hit it on turn 1, so I was able to judgment on any of the following turns. The deck's okay. It has value potential. It has like explosive combo kills and stuff like that. It's just typically fairly it is very explosive, but its long game, it gets weaker and weaker as the game progresses. Again, it has value in the form of like Charlotte and stuff like that, but there's all guidance counter effects cost mana. So there's no 0 mana give guidance counter effects outside of Faria's flip effect on her judgment. So with all guidance effects costing mana to play effective in most cases, the ceiling potential for the deck fell like drastically, because there's nothing you can really, if you're out of mana, you can't add guidance counters anywhere. So you can't do fancy play lines or anything like that. So if you're stuck in a, like, I have to play all this mana in order to get my heroes into play, and then I have to pay all this mana in order to get my guidance counter effects online, it doesn't mesh well. I wish the deck had one form of give a guidance counter at like 0 mana. Like it was attached to a stone, so like instead of producing mana, you could tap it to give a guidance counter to something. It'd be the same kind of vein, but a little bit different. But it can still OTK randomly, so that's why it gets C tier. I'm on the bottom row. Nice. Violet gets to go into A tier. So Violet in A tier, the reason I would put Violet in A tier, we saw her a lot through the last GP season in 2021. She won one event, I believe, an online event, and then she constantly top 8'd multiple events. And in New Frontiers, there was only one list that was really topping. It was just like the traditional Atoms and then Bahamut to kill your opponent lists. We saw some freaky like 49, 48 card lists, stuff like that. And then in Wander, there's also the Electo list, but we're just talking about New Frontiers. New Frontiers also has access to the Electo variant. However, Electo gets heavily hosed by Dante. And so if Dante is ever prevalent in the format, the Electo version isn't. The other thing with the Electo version is, since we lost Dual Stones, we lost the red-blue Dual Stone, that deck is less consistent mana-wise. So that can be a little bit of a problem. So the traditional Violet list is probably what we'll see moving forward. Did that deck gain anything? It didn't really gain a whole lot. The Nyarlathotep cards don't work super well with it. However, Nyarlathotep is kind of the, I don't want to say boogeyman. She has the potential to kill you on the first turn of the game with multiple like sets of cards in the hand. So you don't need to play like the Faria Heroes list where you need to hit a specific stone and then have like 4 or 5 exact cards. You only really need, I think it's like 3 cards, and it can be a variant of some of those cards with the Nyarlathotep deck. And your stone base in Nyarlathotep and New Frontiers is 20 Firestones, 20 basic Firestones. So so your mana base is very consistent. So it's just a lot more consistent at killing. And so typically the decks that are going to be higher on this list, as well as have more potential, are the decks that can answer the OTK it can do if it goes second. Violet can do that. Dark Prominence is one of is unanswered. Aegis is also an answer, and it just has multiple answers to that play line of Nyarlathotep. It also just is doing what it already does. Bahamut's still a 40/40, still has swiftness, flying, all that good stuff. So that's why Violet is up at like the A tier. She didn't lose a whole lot, especially in the traditional version that's predominantly red. But she didn't really gain anything. So she's kind of still in like the same area. So I wouldn't be surprised if Violet won another GP. And I would expect more people to top 8 with it within the next coming season. But she didn't just like gain anything. It's the same deck. It's the same deck we've been seeing pretty much. Maybe 1 or 2 like fancy tech cards. You can play Wind of Asgard in the deck in order to give your Violet barrier before you flip her, so she can't die to like Flame of Outer World or anything like that, which that is kind of relevant. It can also give your Baja barrier because again, Wind of Asgard is like a field state, so she kind of has that as like a new tech, which can be nice. It's almost like a atomic turbulence, almost. So yeah, that's where I would put Miss Violet. Wolfgang. I think B tier. So I think the only reason he goes into B tier is because of his stone base. Because I think him losing duels was like pretty bad. Again, a lot of these decks are just playing 4 Magic Stone of the 6 Sage, right? So like 4 of your 10 stones are 5 color stones. The issue becomes the only other 5 color stones are the Ragnarok Stone, the Fallen Angel, like your ruler's Astral Stone, Dante Stone, I think is what a lot of people call it, and then Bradstone and Ragnarok Stone. Those are the 5 color stones. So if you're not predominantly green for Bradstone, or you're not a Fallen Angel deck that's playing Dante for Dante Stone, then you lose 2 of the 5 color options. So then all you have left is Magic Stone of the 6 Age and Ragstone. I guess there's Welser Stone too, but that only works in that deck. So Wolfgang kind of got a little hit with the duel thing, because he is a 5 color deck. He has every color across his demonic worlds. However, he primarily searches them, and then his own stone can fix for them, right? So it's not too bad, but it is a hit. In terms of the actual deck, the only thing that I'm worried about with Wolfgang is I don't think he has stuff that answers the Nyarlathotep play lines. And he's always he's sort of struggled against Violet and stuff like that. The other thing is Kaguya was a lot more prevalent when we didn't know that the ruler had to be recovered in order to order it. So, but with that, Kaguya lost a lot of power. Just that ruling, Kaguya lost a lot of power. So I don't know if addition removal will be as prevalent as it was going to be when Kaguya was thought to be one of the best decks because of that old ruling. So, if addition removal is ever prevalent, Wolfgang is bad. He becomes a lot worse. However, if it's not prevalent, he kind of gets raised up. So I'd probably put him in like a B+ tier. Again, we don't see a lot of people playing Wolfgang. We've seen some tops with him, I believe. At least in, I don't think in America, but in other regions we've seen some tops with Wolfgang, I believe. And the deck has potential. It has like a lot of removal, has a lot of value, and how Wolfgang rips out the demonic worlds, and then it has this random OTK line with the Fallen Angel of Terminus. So the deck has potential, it's there. It just suffers from stone inconsistency, as well as not having a lot of early answers to more dangerous play lines. Moving on. Asmodeus. So there was only really one Asmodeus deck, and it was Carlina Asmodeus. That deck lost a decent chunk of stuff. Primarily, so it still has making the 4 1/1 tokens with swiftness into that like combo line of like double God's Art and stuff like that. However, it lost Raisin Revive in order to like rip out like Virgilius or something when you God's Art with Asmodeus. And it lost Magna's Guardian Beast in order to rip out other 1-drops and stuff like that. So that was like what the deck was doing, is it was going like 4 Magnus Guardian Beast, 4 Raisin Revive, 4 of the like token thing, and it was just kind of spamming that stuff and then killing your opponent with Asmodeus like God's Arts. With it kind of pigeonholing into something, someone would have to find something new that it can use in order to do like a pop off kind of thing. The potential's still there, but you didn't really see Asmodeus played with a whole lot of other rulers, especially not at like a high level. And then with the Carlina Asmodeus deck losing so many cards, it and then it being a 60 card deck, it starts to suffer from consistency issues. Its stone lineup is fine. All the Fallen Angel stone lineups are fine for the most part. Alright, there is one other 5-color stone. I actually forget. There's Amadeus, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, so that's why that's in the C tier. If someone finds something, or just gets, you know, they always draw the create 4 tokens and then kills their opponent, great. I could see it top 8ing an event. I don't see it ever potentially winning an event. Astema. So the top end of Astema, the Astema lists that we saw before was Belial Astema. That was really the only one. We didn't see Dante even really as a sideboard option because it turned off the Ataroctia's Memorias. So the deck lost Ataroctia's Memoria. Pretty much the whole main deck was all Saga Cluster forward. So it didn't really lose any main deck options, but its stone base got a lot more inconsistent. However, the 4 Ataroctia's Memorias can just be, for Astema Belial, Amadeus Crystal. Amadeus Holy Crystal. So the reason for that, I'm going to put him in A tier for now, by the way, and I'll explain why. So the reason for the Amadeus is it gives you the 5 color along with the Magic Stone of the 6 Sages, and then your other 2 stones are probably Erythropias in order to get more Belial triggers. It, as a control deck, like an on-field control deck, it is very powerful. It being able to kill something, so like I use my 1 card to kill your 1 card, but then I draw a card, you're always going value up. That was the best part of the deck. And then the God's Arts also provide you with more value through Inferno and then just Belial's draw a card, as well as protection, right? And some of the best kill spells in the game. So the deck was just a very, very good on-field control deck. The issue was either games taking too long, the deck not being able to like close games out that well, so on and so forth. The thing that has happened with the Fallen Angel decks that are going to be playing, well, that can play white or light, is I foresee a lot of those decks starting to play Hunting Angel in some capacity, especially in the main now, because Hunting Angel has a kind of built-in self-infinite. So its Fallen effect is whenever you would gain, I believe it's whenever you would gain life. Here, we'll go to the database. Hunting Angel. Fallen, whenever you gain life, this card deals that much damage to your opponent. So whenever you gain life, you deal damage to your opponent. The infinite is you give it Drain. So if you have a way to give Hunting Angel Drain, it will go infinite until your opponent dies. There is an issue with it with Astema, and then kind of an issue with it in general. So the way you give it Drain, the old way was you had to use Arm of the Demon, I think is the name? Yeah, Arm of the Demon. And all it did was give Drain and Bane to your board. And then you shuffled it. It was one of Celeste's treasures. However, now we have this card. Now we have Keep the Faith, which you are already going to play in Astema Belial for 2 reasons. 1, it can bring back Flute, and can be played off of Flute. 2, it can bring back Suya, so you can Suya at instant speed. I'm sure there are other 1-drops in that deck that it can bring back. Black Witch, Pointy Witch, right? The deck played a lot of 1-drops because it was trying to be mana efficient. So, but Keep the Faith also can give Drain. So, and it's in Light, which Hunting Angel is also in Light. The deck can also play the new Brunhild to resurrect the Hunting Angel, like if you discarded it earlier or it died, and then like give it Drain, right? The issue with it in Astema lists, because Astema says your opponent cannot lose the game, if you do the infinite with Hunting Angel, what happens is because it's a self-contained infinite, either you, or loop, you as the turn player, or the player controlling who initiated the loop, has to declare how many instances of the loop are going to occur, and if you have a way to stop the loop, you have to do that after that many instances. If you do not have a way, you literally do not have a way to stop the loop after it's been started, Your opponent has to stop it. If your opponent has no way to stop the loop, it's a draw. Okay? So, if you play the Astema, the Hunting Angel, you do the infinite thing, you have no way to kill your Hunting Angel, your opponent has no way to kill your Hunting Angel, or stop taking damage, game's over, it's a draw. Okay? And Astema games already take ages. So, in Astema Belial, you kind of have to be careful with it. However, it's like... it's a much faster win con, and you're already playing most of these cards anyway. Like, the deck already sideboarded Hunting Angel, I'm fairly certain, because it's still destruction. It's discard, so it's not cancelable outside of Feethsing. And then it now also has an easier way to go infinite with a resurrection spell that you are already playing. So I foresee that popping up in a lot of the Fallen Angel lists, Astema Belial being one of them. The other Astema deck is potentially Astema Carlina. The reason for that is Carlina provides you the mana consistency, right, and allows you to go mana up. That would... I'm unsure of how good that deck would be. You don't get access to Prideful Rule or Prideful Fire or the like the Bane tokens in general for Belial. However, Carlina's fixing all your mana for you. So you have access, like your Infernos are always active because of Carlina. Flame of Outer World is always active because of Carlina. And you can play like kind of a different control deck. Maybe your deck like intends to drop Garyon super early or other things like that. So it has potential. We'll have to see where that one ends up lying, though, because it is just like the one card per turn kind of thing outside of the discard effects. So that's why Astema's in the A tier. Astema Belial, Astema Carlina, those are the two main Astema decks that I see actually functioning. Beatrice. She's in D tier purely because Electo's so good, and she's attached to the other Fallen Angels. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure she's the worst Fallen Angel of them. Of all 7 of them? 6 of them? Pretty sure she's the worst. So, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about Beatrice. The decks were like Beatrice, Belial, like Electo lists. And again, Electo kind of folds to Dante, just in general. And then the deck also can just randomly fold to like Violet or like other decks that have ways to accrue value that can't be touched by Electo, i.e. Lycion decks that play first boon. So the other thing with the Electo decks is they kind of have an issue with closing games out because they don't have like a lot of damage. So that's why Beatrice is in D tier. You can argue for her for C tier just because she's attached to Fallen Angel. Yeah, we'll throw her in C tier. If she top 8'd, like, again, I wouldn't be surprised if someone snuck in with, like, a Beatrice Belial Electo list. They just probably didn't hit any Dantes. But, yeah, she kind of just, like, floats right there. So, that's where I would put that. Belial. So, the Belial's going to go into S tier. The reason for that is there are 3 Belial decks. There's Belial, Carlina Belial, Belial Astema, which we talked about, and then Belial Dante. Those are the decks. The Belial Dante list lost its like combo kill in the form of Secret Duel of the Moonlight Inferno. However, because it lost Secret Duel of the Moonlight, that was an Alice Origins card. However, it still has access to, like, it can do its early Virgil stuff because of Dante. It's still Belial, so it has protection against like more aggro variants. It still has like Prideful Rule and other things like that. So that deck was more of like a low to the ground good stuff deck. It also is predominantly 5 color because you get to play the Satan Stone plus Magic Stone of the Six Sages and then some amount of Erythropia. That's just the stone lineup for that deck. So it functions well. The Dante being able to be like sideboarded is also nice, but typically you're bringing in the Dante in order to have like early Virgilius plays, Virgilius, I don't know if Virgilius is as good as he was, which is kind of a weird thing to say. Nothing really happened, but I don't know if Virgilius is as good as he used to be. We'll see. We'll talk about that when I talk about Carlina, but yeah, so the Belial Dante lists are just mainly trying to like combo kill you with Inferno. That's like the whole point. Or that was what they used to do, but they don't really have a way to set themselves to 0 anymore. I don't think there's any effect that pays life right now. Pay life. Like, I guess... Oh god, no, that's 3 mana. Yeah, and all these are from something else. Yeah, so there's like no pay life effect anymore. So you're probably not... Yeah, that's kind of weird. I wonder what that deck, the Belial Dante specifically, would turn into. However, it also there's also Belial Astema, and then there's Belial Carlina, which I think Carlina's next. Yeah, okay. Carlina's next, so we'll talk about that right now. Okay. Carlina's also S tier, partially because, like, Belial Carlina. So, the Carlina decks. Carlina Belial, Carlina Astema, Carlina Dante, and then I already kind of talked about Carlina Asmodeus. So, Carlina Asmodeus is the most bottom, like, version of it. Carlina Astema, again, kind of has to be proven. She just provides you the mana for all your Astema effects, and then Astema provides you all the cards. It's just trying to trade at 1-for-1 can be, because you're only allowed to play 1 card a turn, can be a little weird, and then you eventually have to swap out for Satan, and so on and so forth. But the Carlina Astema list also can play like 4 Hunting Angel, some amount of Brunhild, and go like Brunhild revive Hunting Angel. Hunting Angel just sits in play, keep the Faith drain next turn, and then you like win the game, right? So it has that kind of potential, as well as like Castle of Carlina plays. Carlina Belial. Carlina Belial, I don't think actually lost like anything. It still has its stone base. Like if you look at the stone base, would get a little weirder because it would be 4 6-Sage Stone, and then you probably play 4 Bradstone and then 2 Erythropia. So the deck was predominantly green in the first place through like number 13. I mean, the deck played Welser, Garyon, like other stuff like that. However, Carlina allows you to have all the 5-colored mana you want. So Carlina Belial also has access to the same card that the Asmodeus deck uses. I think it's like Cthulhu something. Cthulhu. This card, Swarming Cthulhu. So it has access to this card. You produce red and black, and then all your little 1/1s gain swiftness and precision. And then if you're Belial, they also gain Bane and +2/+2, but the Bane is more important. So you create 4 things that have Bane off of a swiftness, Bane, precision off of a single card. That's a lot. That kills a lot of things in play. Exactly 4 of them. So it has that for like board wipe material. Again, it has all the like top end stuff, Castle Carlina, Garyon, those kinds of control type things. So it's still probably the best like hard control deck. We'll see where it lands against Feeth Mouge. The deck didn't really... Carlina Belial didn't really get a lot of stuff outside of potentially Hunting Angel, Brunhild, Keep the Faith type things, okay? We'll see what people come up with, but that deck... It's hard to differentiate between the Belial Carlina list and then the Astema Carlina list, because Astema Carlina gets so much more value, like just card value, whereas the Belial Carlina list just has so many more efficient cards, I guess. So we'll see what happens with that, with those different decks. But Carlina's definitely like she facilitates so many extra decks because of all the extra mana that she gets, right? I don't think she got really whole lot of new tools outside of maybe playing like Mistletoe or things like that. Mistletoe is very powerful, but we'll get into that when we get to order. Dante is going to be an A tier. The reason for that is Carlina Dante lost it still has the Virgilius, right? But it lost Light of Raisin Revive and it lost Izanami. So it lost 2 of its like Virgilius Revive spells, basically. Which is, I mean, that's very relevant. It still has the Pharesia, the one that can give Barrier, and it still has Virgilius. So you can still kind of go with that type of line. You might sideboard Dante with Belial Carlina, just in case Electo is super prevalent for some reason. Or if you're scared of Electo or like other graveyard type things. But I don't foresee too many Dante variants being as popular as it was, if that makes sense. So I still expect to see them. There are probably some people who are just going to be like, I love slamming a Virgilius and then just killing my opponent. Like, I'm sure there are people like that. But I don't think it will be as popular as it was, if that makes sense. And it's definitely not as potent as it was before. Satan gets to go into literally don't know. Yeah. Kaguya. Kaguya gets to go into B tier. Order is very powerful. The cards that were released with Order are very powerful. However, again, that ruling of just you can't order when your ruler is rested hosed a lot of decks and a lot of deck ideas. So it got a lot worse due to that. So unfortunately, I'd put Kaguya in B tier. She has a lot of reuse effects. And her mana situation is very powerful. Her value situation is very weak. She doesn't generate a whole lot of value. However, she can use Brad cards that were designed like kill your J-Ruler, do something in order to flip back and forth a lot. She also has access to Malua. Kaguya is a 5-color deck. You get 4 Bradstone, 4 Magic Stone, and the 6-8. I don't know why I forget it. It's like the best stone. It's one of the best cards in the game. You can play a Ragstone or 2 in order to not have to tap your ruler. And you get to play the Brad cards. So that's kind of how you accumulate value, is through the Brad stuff, as well as like bouncing, stuff like that. And then eventually like Hanzo, right? And then you kill them some way through Galileo or Hanzo or whatever. But again, she was supposed to be the new control deck, right? She got a new cancel spell, she got Feethsing, Hanzo, all this like good stuff, and then they just like hit Order like across the face. They're like, no, you will not be good. Or broken, or whatever. So she gets to go into B tier. We'll see where she ends up, but Loki. Loki also gets to go into B tier. Maybe C tier. I think C tier. So Loki has 2 decks. One that's like Giants related, and then another that is Electo related. The Electo variant is a little bit different than the Violet variant. The issue the Electo variant of Loki has is the Electo, you don't have as much draw potential. So you have less Electo triggers, but your stuff is a lot more durable in the face of cancels because you're Order. It's also more powerful against other Order decks. So if Order was more powerful, Loki would be more powerful. But with Order being worse, Loki's worse. Go figure. The Giants deck is kind of cool, because like looping Schmel and stuff like that is pretty decent. Schmel kills like a lot of things if it has its neg effect, and then it's also just discard value. It's Loki suffers from the same issue as like Kaguya and stuff like that. The other issue Loki suffers from is he has the worst mana like consistency of the 4 Order rulers. I built a deck with him, and I think mine had like 3 Bradstone in it, because this Loki is like the epitome of control. Like all his stuff is super control-y and then just generates value and stuff like that. He's the epitome of like a kind of like a Stemma Belial. He's not a cancel thing like Kaguya or Feethmooge or anything like that. He's just pure field control. Like that's what he is. But his mana base is so... But in order to be pure field control, he needs to be 5-color. So with him not being 5-color, or the 5-color thing options not being great for him, he got like a lot worse. So so that's why he's in like the C tier. If someone tops with him, again, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe the Giants are just that powerful. Maybe the Electo variant wins out and they don't play any Dantes. Maybe they play a bunch of order decks and just crush them back to back. Who knows? Wouldn't be surprised, but I don't really foresee Loki like topping something. Niar. If I could, I would put Niar in B+, like high B+, but we don't have a B+, so she's going into A tier. The reason she's going into A tier is Nyarlathotep has the highest like burst damage, highest consistent damage, and highest value I've like ever seen out of a burn ruler ever existing in Force of Will. Through Malua, you have like crazy amounts of card value, and Red Wine and Bread. Red Wine and Bread and Malua give you an absurd amount of card value, and Isis, like all three of those, just the value is absurd. A lot of your cards are mana efficient because Nyarlathotep lets you banish stones instead of paying their cost, things like that. And you generate free stones, so you can just banish them, and then those cards draw you cards. And then her burst damage, Nyarlathotep, like I talked about earlier, has a very, very easy to hit turn one like kill if they go second. They need Energize to do it because of the order thing. They need to have the ruler recovered in order to order. So whenever I've been building decks, the decks that I've been like looking at for tournament success and stuff like that, all have an answer to Nyarlathotep's turn one. If they don't, I don't even consider it, which is quite a few of those in the C tier below. So, so that's why Nyarlathotep gets to go into A tier. Her poke is insane, like with Red Riding Hood and stuff like that. The amount of, like, again, the amount of value she gets. Everything in the deck effectively having swiftness because you can order over and over and over if your opponent keeps killing your stuff. And yeah, it's a very good, very aggro focused, very decent deck. Last but not least, Odin. Odin I'm going to put into B tier. The reason for Odin in B tier is Mistletoe is a very, 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 very good card. Being able to stop activate abilities hoses like a lot of decks. Like J Resonators not being able to use their activate abilities stops a bunch of decks. Like it stops Virgilius. It stops Loki like using the Loki order effect. It stops Isis. It stops Hanzo. Other stuff. It stops a flipped Carlina. So Mistletoe stops a whole lot of cards. And it's so hard to kill that card. A lot of these decks up here have a very easy time killing Mistletoe. A lot of the decks down here don't have an easy time killing Mistletoe. And if the whole deck idea is you like stick a Mistletoe and then you accumulate value off of that, you discard your cards, etc., and then you generate more value off of like Brunhild resurrecting things, right? You resurrect like 2 Hegels, get like a lock, and then win the game from there. Odin's very durable, just as a deck in general. Its idea is fun through the initial like Mistletoe and then like supersuit it with her sword and shield. I don't know, I think it's thematic and cool. And so I'd put him kind of in like the B tier area. Again, he's like a control deck. You basically play like a boss monster like Mistletoe or something, or Mistletoe or Brunhild, and then just protect it. It's like protect the president type thing. So that is why Odin would be in B tier. Again, order, suffering from the ruling. That's why he's in B. Otherwise, like I think if order was different, I think all of these would move up a tier. I would put Niar in S, I would put both of these in A, and I would put Loki in B, maybe high B, A, because the order would be better. So it is what it is, though. So that'll conclude this video. This is my tier list for where I would put all the current rulers in the New Frontiers format going into whatever event we may have. I know there's been kind of like a spoiler suspicious like type thing about maybe like a Vegas event happening. So if there is, I'll be there and I'll see y'all there. But anyway, I've been Charlie DeMel. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a great new year, and then look forward to any future deck profiles I might have on my channel. See ya.